This is a bunch of baloney. This is caca, folks. This was not an accident. There is no way on God's green earth that a giant, enormous container ship like the ACX Crystal would be able to just lumber its way into the side of a United States Navy destroyer on accident at night. Now, tinfoil hat firmly ensconced here, I'm going to kind of walk through the logic of this and show why this is an absolute impossibility and what I believe probably is the case based on other events in that region as well and other regions. Now, the USS Fitzgerald is a Navy destroyer, and the U.S. Navy is very good at locating and maintaining information on the position of all of its warships down literally to the foot. Its attitude, its direction of travel, its speed of travel, all of that is continually maintained in places other than on the ship. So they knew. And this location is reported to all sorts of maritime satellite systems that keep ships from doing this. This isn't a kind of ship where the skipper can just amble his way up to the wheel and spin it and, move the rudder around and decide he's just going to point this boat wherever he wants to. That doesn't happen on a Navy ship like this, and it also doesn't happen on a ship like this, the ACX Crystal. This is a 29,000 ton massive container ship. And what you're looking at here is a place called Vessel Finder. Now, Joe Schmo, just like you or me, can go to vesselfinder.com and you can type in ACX Crystal and it'll tell you right where it is. And you can track this on a map. And just click on Track on Map. And it shows here's the ACX Crystal. And we can zoom out and we can see that it's here at Shingawa in Japan in port. And all of these other dots, these are all other ships. And this tells you up to the minute where exactly all of these ships are. There are proximity detectors on Navy vessels, and I'm sure there's proximity detectors on a ship like this too. They would not have been able to get within a mile of each other without a whole bunch of alarms going off and that entire crew on the destroyer being awoken to those alarm bells. So the fact that we have 7 sailors missing, something else going on. Now I have a theory, and there was some years ago a ship, I believe over in the Mediterranean, possibly Italy, that sailed itself into too shallow water. It was a cruise ship. And they had to evacuate all the people, and the thing ended up tipping over because it was just in way too shallow water. And they blamed the captain. The captain was drinking, or the captain was this, that, or the other. Well, these ships, these big, huge, tens of million dollars, possibly billions of dollars ships, are not just susceptible to people just deciding, you know what, we're going to sail over here instead of sailing over there. Their routes and their paths, all of this are controlled and pre-programmed and planned just so this doesn't happen. There are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of ships every day that sail through shipping lanes all the time, and this doesn't happen. Why? Satellites. That's why. And I guarantee both of these ships, and I'm proving it right here with this one, that it's tracked by satellite down to the foot. Where it is, there's so much cargo on board and so much money involved in these ships getting to their destination safely and not making themselves a hazard on the sea to other ships, that this is all taken care of. Now, here's my theory. I believe somebody has been able to get into the systems that report locations on these ships and muck with them in a way that causes these ships to miss report their location. And they've been able to do so in such a way that causes these types of collisions. Now, why the proximity detectors didn't go off on the destroyer when it got within a mile, I don't know. Because they have localized radar systems that are able to ping off of anything around them within a mile. And, they have the ability to, even if they didn't have satellites, they have discrete systems that can tell them that, the direction of travel and if anything's in their path. And it's not, I know a big lumbering oaf of a container ship can't exactly slam on the brakes and it can't exactly make a hard left-hand turn, but at sea, one of those destroyers can. And when you look at the damage, it was the destroyer that got hit. The destroyer didn't sail into the container ship. The container ship sailed into the destroyer. So, unless this destroyer was someplace it wasn't supposed to be, and even if it was someplace it wasn't supposed to be, the discrete systems on the ship would have been able to, that wouldn't require satellite intervention, would be able to tell when that ship came within a mile or so of something that large. I mean, this thing didn't sail over a trawler. Some years back in the 90s, there was a submarine that surfaced in Japan, and it surfaced into a tour boat. Tour boats are little, submarines are big. These things can happen. I could see that happening because those, little bitty ship with a bunch of people taking pictures on it, this can happen. No freaking way this happens. And that was back in the 90s when that happened. And satellite tracking was in its infancy. In 2017, no way. Absolutely no way. We have satellites now that they're even talking about having driverless cars that can tell when a car is within 2 feet of another car amongst tens of thousands of other cars. You're telling me that this giant, enormous container, multi-football field length container ship, they somehow lost tracking on, and it sailed into a United States Navy destroyer that also couldn't tell it was within a mile of a ship? That's bullshit. And that we have 7 sailors missing? Folks, something stinks here. Something is not right. This is not an accident. These things just would not happen. And I think that it's a terrifying prospect. But the reason the channel is covering it is because I've made allegation that something is going to happen down in the Panama Canal because it's too juicy a target. And if what I'm alleging is possible, that they are able to now get into these satellite systems and get these systems to misreport back to ships their locations and where they are. If you think this is congested, you should see the canal. It wouldn't take much. It really wouldn't. And boy, I tell you what, if they can somehow do this with U.S. Navy ships as well, and these Navy ships are getting information back from these satellites that are incorrect about targets, about anything else, boy, I tell you, that would pretty much immobilize the U.S. Navy, or any other world Navy for that matter, because I don't know of a Navy that doesn't use satellite tracking and satellite systems to affect operations. It would be a frightening, frightening, frightening thing. I don't know that they have the ability to get into the weapon systems and remotely control them and start firing on things, but if they're getting reported that a certain target location is, 150 miles to the west and, at this elevation, and it's all false, and it reports an entirely different thing, and it can get it to target a civilian location as opposed to a military one, boy, I tell you, that would be a frightening, frightening prospect. And from a computer standpoint, to hack into one of these satellites, doesn't seem like it would be a giant, heavy lift for the folks that are experienced at hacking computers, like the Chinese. So I think this might have been a dry run. And it's just not feasible in my mind that this was an accident. So Anyway, I'm sure I'm going to get probably a lot of pushback on this, but I'm just going to put it out there. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you much.